Thank you, Liz. Thanks for the invitation. So I'm going to speak a bit about my research. It's not currently based on the government records, but there's a huge use of AI to treat them. And a methodological framework that is basically based on AI. So yes, I'm just a few words about me. Yes, I'm a historian, international historian by training, and with a bit of political sciences, but I turned progressively to basically digital history and today digital memory studies. So just a few words about my current research. My current research is based on the fact that I considered chatbots, and specifically chatbots, as medium of memory. So I consider here chatbots, so generative AI platforms designed for wide audiences, made of an interface that encourages users to enter a prompt in order to generate text, images, or videos, as usually chatbots are today multimodal. So it's a quite large definition of chatbots. I also consider specifically chatbots and their interaction and humans' interaction with chatbots, and not large language models, because between the large language model or the diffusion system for the images that are at the heart of chatbots, of how chatbots work, and the chatbot interface itself, there are lots of layers of software that might change a lot the answers provided to the users. So chatbots as medium of memory, what does it mean? I ground here what I say on the book by Astrid Earle, Memory and Culture from 2011. Basically, chatbots are medium of memory because they store information in their own very specific way, we agree. On that, they allow form of circulation of this information, and sorry for the typo, and they can also be collective memory triggers, because when you prompt them about the past, then there will be some embedded views of the past that we come out of this. More specifically, I also consider chatbots as systems that are at the same time produced by primary sources, and even in some ways historical primary sources, and as producers of primary sources. Produced because there is always, for large language models, for instance, for all machine learning systems, this training phase. And this training phase is always based on large data sets that could be, in a way, considered as primary sources, as sort of archive. And producers of primary sources, because basically they incite users to write prompts that can be considered as archive for future historians, but they also generate text, images, videos that will be theoretically materials for future historians or even today's historian. It's basically what I'm doing. In my case, I specifically focus on prompts with references to the past. I will go back to that in a minute. In the end, there are some researchers who see chatbots and large language models or diffusion system as a sort of agency of the past, because of this training phase based on training data set. Basically, in my case, what I do is that I consider prompts that are written by humans, but that are specifically referring to the past, to the historical past, that contains references to the historical past. Zoe Hitzig, who was a researcher at OpenAI and today at the Anthropic Institute, in an op-ed where she explained why she was leaving OpenAI, spoke about an archive of human candor when she spoke about the prompt. And what I'm though I'm not sure yet what archive of human candor mean. I just like the expression. She's considering so the prompts written by humans as this archive of human candor. And in my case, I really look at this as an archive of human candor about the past. My difficulty here, and it's now that I'm starting to explain how I'm using AI to do my research, is that I first need to get some prompts, so some primary sources. But there are data sets of prompts thanks to Stable Diffusion because it's an open source system, so they publish the prompts, some prompts. First, I need to get the prompts, and then I need to identify in those prompts the one which are specifically specifically referring to the past. And the difficulty here is that this reference to the past can be implicit. Here you have an example of a prompt. It's the first part of the prompt. It's not a complete prompt. The second part is about the style that the image should have. Army of the European Union with tanks fighting on the streets of Budapest. And if you remove European Union by USSR, then you've got a mention of the 1956 intervention of the Soviet army in Hungary. That was a prompt from 2022, and that's linked to the negotiation between Hungary and the European Commission. But here you've got an implicit references to the past. So to work with this data set of prompts that I have collected, it's basically 10 million prompts. I cannot look as humanly in those prompts to see which one are containing a reference to the past. So I will basically use a language model to look for me in those 10 million lines and to find the prompts that are referring to the past. So I have not done formal benchmarks yet. That's something I should do. But what I have used up to now is the API from OpenAI, the API from Anthropic, and a small language model of 3 billion parameters from Mistral, the Mistral 3 model that they published in last December, and which is a quite good small model. In the end, Claude thinks that there are 9% of prompts that contains historical references to the past, OpenAI between 4 and 5, and Mistral around 6, 7. How do I do that? Basically, I send a system prompt, so instructions to the API or to the model, explaining it what it should see, what it should look at in the prompts in each line of my CSV file, my 10 million line CSV file, and then it should send back a yes or a no, and with one sentence to explain its reasoning. So it's not necessarily the best system prompt, and the system prompts can involve quite a lot of biases, but yeah, for now I'm still experimenting. So in the end, I've got my prompt that I have started to analyze, and how do I analyze the results sent by the API or the model. I basically write code to analyze it, to see why a prompt is not referring to the past or why it is referring to the past. So to analyze the reasons that the model gave me. And here I also use AI. I don't write code myself. I can write, but it's very basic. So I'm basically doing what is called vibe coding. My chance is that I've got enough, a digital culture that is strong enough to be able to assess the code that is written. So to be sure that the code that is written by Claude Code or Mistral Vibe, for instance, is really doing what it's supposed to do. And that allows me to focus on my research question, which is basically to see if people prompting about the past are trying to negotiate the past, in fact, to ask the model to send back a text or an email that corresponds to the user's view on the past. My final question for this short presentation will be, in fact, to get back to a very old question, which is the question of the training, the digital or computing training of the historians. It's at least 6 decades old question, as I take as the reference the publication of La fin de l'érudit by Emmanuel Leroy-Ladurie in France in 1968, but that could be another text in another language and in another country. So it's a 60 years old question, this question of the training of the historian, and I think that today it's even a more pressing question. I perfectly know that my colleague, my historian colleagues will not write their code themselves, etc. But the question of our digital culture as historians is today an important question, and we need to get historians ready for basically archives Gen AI ready. Thanks.